Hi class, we're going to continue reading Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. We are currently on chapter 13, which is Good Progress. Ready? Far into the night, while the other creatures slept, Charlotte worked on her web. First, she ripped out a few of the orb lines near the center. She left the radial lines alone, as they were needed for support. As she worked, her 8 legs were a great help to her. So were her teeth. She loved to weave, and she was an expert at it. When she was finished ripping things out, her web looked something like this. Here's the web. A spider can produce several kinds of threads. She uses a dry, tough thread for foundation lines, and she uses a sticky thread for snare lines, the ones that catch and hold the insects. Charlotte decided to use her dry thread for the writing of the new message. If I write the word terrific in sticky thread, she thought, every bug that came along will get stuck in it and spoil the effect. Now, let's see. The first letter is T. Charlotte climbed into the point of the top left hand of her web. Swinging her spinnerets into position, she attached her thread and then dropped down. As she dropped her spinning tubes into the action, and she let out her thread. At the bottom, she attached the thread. This formed the upright part of the T. Charlotte was not satisfied, however. She climbed up and made another attachment right next to the first. Then she carried the line down, so that she had a double line instead of a single line. It will show up much better if I make the whole thing with double lines. She climbed back up and moved over about an inch to the left, touched her spinnerets on the web, and then carried the line across to the right, forming the top of the T. She repeated this, making it double. Her 8 legs were very busy at work. Now for the E. Charlotte got so interested in her work that she began to talk to herself, as though to cheer herself on. If you had been sitting quietly in the barn cellar that evening, you might have heard something like this. Now for the R. Up we go. Attach, descend. Pay out the line. Woo! Attach. Good. Up you go. Repeat. Attach, descend. Pay out the line. Woo, girl. Steady now. Attach, climb, attach. Over to the right. Pay out the line. Attach now. Right down. Swing that loop around and round. Now in the left. Attach, climb, repeat. Okay. Easy. Keep those lines together. Now then. Out, down for the leg of the R. Pay out line. Woo! Attach, descend, repeat. Go, girl. And so, talking to herself, the spider worked at her difficult task. When it was completed, she felt hungry. She ate the small bug that she had been saving. Then she slept. Next morning, Wilbur rose and stood beneath the web. He breathed in the morning air into his lungs. Drops of dew, catching the sun, made the web stand out clearly. When larvae arrived for breakfast, there was a handsome pig, and over him, woven neatly in block letters, was the word terrific. Another miracle. Larvae rushed and called Mr. Zuckerman. Mr. Zuckerman rushed and called Mrs. Zuckerman. Mrs. Zuckerman ran to the phone and called the Arables. And the Arables climbed in the truck and hurried over. Everyone stood at the pig pen and stared at the web and read the word over and over, while Wilbur, who felt terrific, stood quietly swelling up his chest and swinging his snout from side to side. Terrific, breathed Zuckerman in joy and admiration. Edith, you better phone the reporter on the Weekly Chronicle and tell him what happened. He will want to know about this. He may want to bring a photographer. There isn't a pig in the whole state that is as terrific as our pig. The news spread. People who had journeyed to see Wilbur when he was some pig came back to see him now that he was terrific. That afternoon, when Mr. Zuckerman went for milk from the cows and to clean up the tie-ups, he was still thinking about the wondrous pig he owned. Larvae, he called. There is to be no more cow manure thrown down in the pig pen. I have a terrific pig, and I want the pig to have a clean, bright straw every day for his bedding. You understand?" "Yes, sir," said Larvy. "Furthermore," said Mr. Zuckerman, "I want you to start building a crate for Wilbur. I have decided to take the pig to the county fair on September 6th. Make the crate large. Paint it green with gold letters." "What will it say?" said Larvy. "It will say, 'Zuckerman's famous pig.'" Larvy picked up the pitchfork and walked away to get some clean straw. Having such an important pig was going to mean plenty of extra work, and he knew that. Below the apple orchard at the end of the path was a dump where Mr. Zuckerman threw all sorts of trash and stuff that nobody wanted anymore. There in the small clearing, hidden by the young alders and the young raspberry bushes, was an astonishing pile of old bottles, empty tin cans, dirty rags, bits of metal, broken bottles, broken hinges, broken springs, dead batteries, last month's magazines, old discarded dish mops, and tattered overalls, and rusty spikes, and leaky pails, and forgotten stoppers, and useless junk of all kinds, including the wrong size crank for a broken ice cream freezer. Templeton knew the dump, and he liked it. There was good hiding places there, excellent to cover a rat. And there usually a tin can with food still clinging to the inside. Templeton was down there now, rummaging around. When he returned to the bar, he was carrying in his mouth an advertisement he had torn from a crumpled magazine. "How's this?" he asked, showing the ad to Charlotte. "It says crunchy." "Crunchy would be a good word to write in your web." "Just the wrong idea," said Charlotte. "Couldn't be worse. We don't want Zuckerman to think Wilbur is crunchy. He might start thinking about crisp, crunchy bacon and tasty ham. That would put ideas in his head. We must advertise Wilbur's noble qualities, not his tastiness. Now go get another word, please, Templeton." The rat looked disgusted, but he snuck away to the dump and was back in a while with a strip of cotton. "How's this?" he said. "It's a label off of an old shirt." Charlotte examined the label. It said pre-shrunk. "I'm sorry, Templeton," she said, "but pre-shrunk is out of the question. We want Zuckerman to think Wilbur is nicely filled out, not all shrunk up. I'll have to ask you to go try again." "What do you think I am, a messenger boy?" grumbled the rat. "I'm not going to spend my whole time chasing down to the dump after advertisement material." "Just one more time, please," said Charlotte. "I'll tell you what I'll do," said Templeton. "I know where there's a package of soap flakes in the woodshed. It has writing on it. I'll bring you a piece of package." He climbed the rope that hung on the wall and disappeared through the hole in the ceiling. When he came back, he had a strip of blue and white cardboard in his teeth. "There," he said triumphantly. "How's that?" Charlotte read the words, "With new radiant action." "What does that mean?" said Charlotte, who had never used soap flakes in her life. "How should I know?" said Templeton. "You asked for a word, I brought them. I suppose next you want me to fetch you a dictionary." Together they studied the soap ad. "With new radiant action," repeated Charlotte slowly. "Wilbur!" she called. Wilbur, who was asleep in the straw, jumped. "Run around," commanded Charlotte. I want to see you in action and see if you are radiant." Wilbur raced to the end of his yard. "Now back again, faster," said Charlotte. Wilbur galloped back. His skin was shining, his tail was fine and tightly in a curl. "Jump into the air," cried Charlotte. Wilbur jumped as high as he could. "Keep your knees straight. Touch the ground with your ears," called Charlotte. Wilbur obeyed. "Now do a backflip and a half twist in it," cried Charlotte. Wilbur went over backwards, twirling and twisting as much as he could. "Okay, Wilbur," said Charlotte. "You can go back to sleep." "Okay, Templeton. This soap ad will do, I guess. I'm not sure Wilbur's action is exactly radiant, but it is interesting." Actually, said Wilbur, I feel radiant. Do you? Said Charlotte, looking at him with affection. Well, you're a good little pig, and radiant you shall be. I'm in this thing pretty deep now, and I might as well go to the limit. Tired from his romp, Wilbur lay down in the clean straw. He closed his eyes. The straw seemed scratchy, not as comfortable as a cow manure, which was always delightfully soft to lie in. So he pushed the straw to one side, stretched out in the manure. Wilbur sighed. It had been a busy day, his first day being terrific. Dozens of people had come to visit in his yard during the afternoon, and he had had to pose and stand, looking terrific as he could. Now he was tired. Fern had arrived and seated herself quietly on her stool in the corner. Tell me a story, Charlotte, said Wilbur as he lay waiting for sleep to come. Tell me a story. Ooh, something fell down. So Charlotte, although she too was tired, did what Wilbur wanted. Once upon a time, she began, I had a beautiful cousin who managed to build her web across a small stream. One day, a tiny fish leapt into the air and got tangled in her web. My cousin was very much surprised, of course. The fish was thrashing wildly. My cousin hardly dared tackle it, but she did. She swooped down and threw great masses of wrapping material around the fish as it fought bravely, and she captured it. Did she succeed? Asked Wilbur. It was a never-to-be-forgotten battle, said Charlotte. There was the fish, caught only by one fin, and its tail wildly thrashing and shining in the sun. There was the web, sagging dangerously under the weight of the fish. How much did the fish weigh? Said Wilbur. I don't know, said Charlotte. There was my cousin, slipping in, dodging out, beating mercilessly over the head by the wild thrashing fish, dancing in, dancing out, throwing her threads, fighting hard. First she threw a left around the tail. The fish lashed back, then a left to the tail, and a right to the midsection. The fish lashed back. Then she dodged to one side, threw a right and another right to the fin. Then a hard left to the head, while the web swayed and stretched. Then what happened? Said Wilbur. Nothing, said Charlotte. The fish lost the fight. My cousin wrapped it up so tightly it couldn't budge. Then what happened? Said Wilbur. Nothing, said Charlotte. My cousin fought the fish for a while, and then, when she was good and ready, she ate it. Tell me another story, begged Wilbur. So Charlotte told them about another cousin of hers who was an aeronaut. What's an aeronaut? Said Wilbur. A balloonist. My cousin used to stand on her head and let out enough thread to form a balloon. Then she'd let go and be lifted into the air and carried upward in the warm wind. Is that true? Said Wilbur. Or are you just making it up? It's true, replied Charlotte. I have some very remarkable cousins. And now, Wilbur, it's time for you to go to sleep. Sing something, begged Wilbur, closing his eyes. So Charlotte sang a lullaby, while crickets chirped in the grass and the barn grew dark. This was the song she sang. Sleep, sleep, my love, my only, deep, deep in the dung and the dark. Be not afraid, and be not alone. This is the hour when the frogs and the thrushes praise the world from the wood and from the woods and the rushes. Rest from care, my only, my one, my only, deep in the dung and the dark. But Wilbur was already asleep. When the singing ended, Fern got up and went home. Okay. The next chapter we will be reading is chapter 14, and that is Dr. Dorian. good day. Bye, guys.